Hi, I'm Jack Baruzzini, and you're listening to The Secret to Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Jack.
And Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
Today we are discussing the 10th and 11th episodes of Season 2 of Stargate Atlantis, The Lost Boys and the Hive. After pursuing a lead, Lieutenant Shepard's team is ambushed by humans wielding Wraith weapons and wake up on another planet to be greeted by Lieutenant Ford. Ford is now empowered by the Wraith enzyme. He has formed a strike team that plans to use the enzyme to become stronger and to destroy a Wraith Hive ship. After they inject the team with the substance, we get lots of hijinks as everyone seems to be tripping out on the enzyme. They take McKay hostage. They force Shepard to pilot a dart that they captured. Shepard ends up confronting the Wraith Queen after they're captured on the ship. Plans do not go well at all. And in the second episode, the Wraith Queen interrogates Shepard. A second Hive ship arrives. He's returned to his cell. Taylor senses the new arrival of the ship. McKay is abandoned on Ford's planet. He injects himself with a massive dose of the Wraith enzyme to escape the guards. He kind of wigs out there. He steals the Stargate control crystals and returns to Atlantis. Ford is near death, but is urged to fight by Shepard before being taken away. Shepard is interrogated again, and a fellow prisoner is revealed to be a Wraith worshipper. So we kind of get a callback to the humans worshipping the advanced aliens there, kind of like the Gould. McKay is recovering in the Atlantis infirmary. The Daedalus arrives, warns of the impending culling coming. They are unable to beam the warheads onto the Wraith ship due to the jamming signals. The Daedalus is attacked. Shepard fires on the second Hive ship, causing the darts and then the Hive ships to turn on each other, resulting in their mutual destruction. Shepard and his team escapes, but seems that Ford is lost, but they believe that they will see him again. What are your thoughts on this episode, Jeff?
Yeah, I like this pair of episodes. It's nice to see Ford again. You get some good action, some good kind of Wraith politics, which is kind of setting up a plot point we'll see moving forward with the show of Hives kind of coming together and then fighting each other. It's very very similar to the Gould in that way because they're constantly jockeying for fighting over resources and position, and they're setting up these fragile alliances that fall apart at a moment's notice. So that was interesting that this kind of sets that up. I think it's the first time we've seen that, like two Hives kind of coming together. And yeah, the Wraith worshipper part was when I was watching this, I couldn't remember if that girl was a Wraith worshipper from, and I was pretty sure she was, but I couldn't remember. So that was nice that I was like, I kind of saw it coming, but I've seen this before, but it's been a while. And yeah, it was got some good Ronin moments, some good McKay stuff. Taylor got a little bit to do with her, sensing the Wraith, which again, that's also a plot point that we've seen and that we'll continue to see. And yeah, goodbye to Ford. Maybe he was last seen alive on the Hive ship. So, will he be seen again? Well, who's to say? But yeah, overall, it was a good pair of episodes.
Yeah, if there's no body, then I assume he's not dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is Stargate after all.
Yes. Even then,
Yeah,
I don't think that doesn't necessarily mean you're gone for good. What about you, Lisa?
So I'm with Jeff. I liked these pair of episodes. This was the mid-season break, so there was like 4 or 5 months in between these two episodes. So I thought that the first one gave us cliffhanger to want to come back in January to watch. I really think Rodney McKay stole the show on much of this. Him on the enzyme was worth the watch of all of it. So I really like that. And I kind of applaud the writers and the showrunners finding a creative way to bring Ford back again. I liked it. It gave him something. It was interesting. It's not completely original or anything, but their interaction, and Ford has always been kind of a weaker character, and so I liked him here. My only negative would be that the episode The Hive, the second one, was a little slow for the January, after the mid-season break. I don't know. I feel like that one could have had a little more going on, especially on the ship, rather than a whole episode of them running around a ship. And, I felt like there were surprises and new moving forward on the plot. But at the same time, I was like, I know y'all are probably going to say all the fight sequences in space like made up for all of it. I know, but for me, it just felt a little slow.
Yeah, I could see that.
I actually told my husband that we were watching it. I'm like, the guys, they're going to talk about all the shoot 'em up in space and how awesome that was.
What about you, Victor?
Yeah, I really like this pair of episodes. It's standout ones for me in which, by which I mean that I actually can remember them. And, I'm like, oh yeah, it's the one. I remember Ford sitting around the table with all the, people who are hopped up on Wraith-enzyme and stuff. So I really like it. I liked the action. I liked the ship battle, of course. The CG on this for 2004, 2005, and even today looks really good. When they first fly into the Wraith ship, the sense of size is really impressive. So Rainmaker and their internal visual effects studio did a really good job. I mean, it looks cinema quality throughout. I really like the interplay between Ford and Shepard and McKay. It was good to see some of that coming back. Ford's really a tragic character in this. He so much wants to prove it himself. And I liked the incorporation of Janai tech and Wraith tech in this as well. I thought that was really well done too. So there's a lot about this episode I really like. And considering that they only have, in terms of a Wraith ship, they have, the Hive Queen's chamber, they have one corridor, and then they have like one cell set, and that's really all they have. Making the ship seem very big with their limited sets that they had. Really, I think they really made it work too. So it's a very cool episode. And of course we get to see our favorite, village set and our cave set again. So, but redressed and they look a little different this time around.
I like that they're really deepening the landscape of the Pegasus galaxy. Like up until this point, a lot of it is the Wraith, and then there's random little planets, but you're getting a lot more interconnected world now, which I like. You've got seeing the Janai influence on different things and how the Wraith have impacted these different civilizations. And it's cool that the Wraith are getting fleshed out more than they have been. Like you get power politics in them, and they're less just a mindless villain than they kind of were in the first season. So I do like that.
Yeah, it's really the Wraith Queens that are kind of the main ones, because most of the Wraith that we see are drones. But I think we've joked before. You have the couple middle management Wraiths who kind of are the. I don't know if they ever talk about in the show or if it's revealed in any other material, but I kind of think of it. They're like insects, and they have you have different classes of like with an ant colony or bee colony or something. You have different levels of ants. You have your basic workers, then you have your soldiers and the queen. So I kind of think those kind of middle management guys, they also might be kind of like mates to the queen maybe, and that's how they like reproduce, because I don't think they ever really talk about that either. So in the show or anything. So but we will get to see more kind of middle management Wraith and how they kind of more of their role as well in some upcoming episodes. So there's one in particular that's a fun character that we'll see.
Yeah, up until this point, I call those the James Lefzanos Wraith, because he plays all of them pretty much, just with different tattoos. And he does such a good job. Apparently, in real life, he's such a nice guy and a musician as well. But he always is playing kind of the, as you say, the middle management Wraith. And then we get the Queen in these two episodes, played again by Andy Frizzell, who played the Queen in the pilot episode too. So Rising.
Nice.
She does a great job being creepy and believable all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's the teeth.
Yeah. Plus, she's very tall, and I believe she's a yoga instructor. I may have mentioned that as well.
Yeah.
So, really good at kind of moving like a bug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very unsettling and creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting that they're bringing in humans who worship the Wraith. Was there any talk, like when this came out, that like were people worried that they were making the Wraith too much like the Goa'uld? Because now you have like the competing factions, and you have humans who worship them.
I don't I don't think that was, I don't remember that certainly. And I don't remember thinking that when I was watching it. I mean, the Wraith, at least up till this point, they're a very credible threat. And so they're kind of still, fresh and new and scary in a way the Goa'uld really hadn't been for many years.
Mm-hmm. I remember I liked it because it gave us more complexity, and it also gave you a little insight into how they can be defeated. Because the first season of Atlantis is very much like they defeated the ancients. So what can we do? And they're all coming, and like this monolith bad guy. And so this episode kind of helps us realize, oh wait, they have their own issues. And I hadn't really thought about it until watching it now, that it was a lot like the Goa'uld, that they were making it that way. I thought that with the human worshippers, it again felt like just more explanation and more things you've got to watch out for. They've got spies, they've got, stuff like that. So I didn't think about that until now, and probably because we're doing this podcast and it makes me think about these things harder.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was just saying the Goa'uld are more. They're not like they're consuming resources, but they're not trying to just eat everything like the Wraith are. So that's the difference as well. The Goa'uld want to take things over and and take those resources to continue their own whatever. Whereas the Wraith they're doing it out of a need to feed, out of hunger. So they're not just like evil megalomaniacal mustache twirling villains. They're like they actually are driven to this, probably outside of their own control, because they were, a hybrid of bug and human that developed into the race. So like we'll start to kind of see a couple Wraith that we get to know a little bit better, that we kind of maybe get some more insight into that, into them as characters too. So yeah, I just think of them as completely different. I mean, like, they're the big bad and they're the evil villain, but I think of them as like having different goals. So I don't even really can think of them as copying the Goa'uld, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're almost like, I feel like the Wraith are a better version of what Star Trek Voyager tried to do with the Borg.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm trying to think about how the Wraith developed versus how the Borg developed on that show. I mean, the Borg on that show were very creepy too.
They were, but they really shifted away from being like a faceless force of nature to, they had like the Queen and the Hive system and all that, and you got a lot more insight into their culture, but I feel like it demystified them enough to where they weren't as creepy. And I feel like the Wraith have a similar kind of thing with the hierarchy and the way they're just consuming everything, and they consume everybody, but seems like it might be done a bit better.
Plus, I mean, they defeated the ancients on their home turf,
Exactly.
And so that automatically makes them, a very dangerous threat. Since we're talking about the Wraith worshippers, it was interesting. I didn't catch this until I watched the commentary with Martin Wood, who directed it's interesting because Brad Turner and Brad Turner's credited with directing The Lost Boys and Martin Wood is credited with directing The Hive, but they actually co-directed both episodes. Anything that was set on the planet was directed by Brad Turner, and anything that was set on the Hive ship was directed by Martin Wood across the two episodes. But when Nira, the woman that they've quote unquote rescued from one of the Wraith pods, she's been put in a cell with Shepard and is pumping Shepard for information about his homeworld for the Wraith. And he's not really suspicious up until the point where she cuddles up to him and then puts her hand on his chest, like right where the Wraith would feed. And that kind of is a clue for Shepard that maybe he shouldn't give her any additional information. And he's able to use that later to his advantage.
Interesting. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
That subtlety there, but I just figured it was because he thought she was coming on to him too strong.
Yeah, that's what I did too. I was like, yay, he's finally not spilling all his secrets because it's a cute girl trying to, cozy up to him.
Yeah, and her questions do get more pointed around like, oh, tell me about your planet. Are there many people there? Are they yummy? That's right.
Basically.
Oh, the clowns.
The clowns. That was a great
gold, was it not? And do you fight them or you war with them or something? And then he's talking about how they like whole armies of them come out of cars.
Yeah.
That was written so beautifully.
Yeah, there's a lot of humor in this episode. It's for as dark as it is. We should probably get back to the first episode, but when they're locked in the Wraith prison and they're trying to open the door, and they've seen, they know that McKay has cut into the panels before to open the doors to the cells. And so like now if we just had something to cut in, of course, Ford's hidden a knife, one for them to find, one to keep, and throws it and misses. And Ronan pulls out a knife and misses, and then pulls out another knife. And then we cut back to it and the panel is filled with knives.
Yeah.
And Ronan has one last chance. Yeah.
Well, Shepard says the line, how many knives do you have? And Ronan says, however many you need. How many do you need?
Yeah.
Yeah, they laced a lot of funny, like little bits throughout these episodes. I hadn't thought about it to break up the seriousness of what was going on, but it really worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we kind of jumped straight to the second part. I feel like whenever we do a two-parter, we do that. We end up working backwards.
Yeah. It's more fresh.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Memento or a Tarantino movie or something, our podcast.
Exactly like that.
We just jump around in time.
Less blood and swear words, though.
Yeah. 40 minutes earlier. So Ford is very proud to tell, this is back in the first episode now, Shepard and the team about how they've been, basically making raids on Wraith, and capturing them and keeping them. We never really come back to this, but keeping them chained up in their cave's basement, if caves have basements, and harvesting their enzymes. We never really find out what happened to those captive Wraith. Presumably they're down there still. And how the enzyme has made Ford and the people that he's found on this planet even stronger. And kind of the leader of the planet people is Kaneo, who's played by Aaron Abrams, who apparently is really good friends with Martin Garrow, who wrote the first episode, but that's not why he got the part. He auditioned and got the part, but he's very proud of that. There's another member of this crew called Jace, who is kind of like their tech guy, who has found a way to wire up Janai tech. I guess most of these people are former Janai, spies or mercenaries. And as they, attack the Wraith and get their little data bugs or whatever they are, they look like little USB drives, but they're bug shaped. They've actually been able to learn quite a bit about the Wraith, and that's where we first find out that they're becoming increasingly territorial, and Rodney's actually impressed by this. Of course, this is after they've been fed. Shepard's team has been fed the Wraith enzyme. They're served a nice dinner, and of course McKay just dives right into it and starts gobbling it up. And then Ford lets it slip that they've laced the food with the enzyme.
All except Shepard's, because he wants Shepard to be an impartial witness. He's
going to be the control group.
Yeah, basically.
And then Rodney freaks out.
Yeah.
That he's scarfing down all the food. And
he says, this is just like the time I toked pot in college. And Martin Garrow didn't think that line would make it into the final episode, but it did. But yeah, because he's having a total paranoid freak out. Rodney, who's very careful about anything that goes into his body, generally speaking.
Rodney is the guy who would smoke a clove cigarette and think he was getting high.
Yeah, pretty much.
But he never learns, and he's always going to eat at every opportunity, no matter matter what.
Yeah, it is funny you get his caution juxtaposed with his love of any free food.
Yeah. And Ronan and Taylor, though, are feeling the effects of the enzyme, and it's starting to work on them. They're getting faster, stronger, better, harder, whatever.
Yeah. I liked the way they showed them fighting Ford's guys early on, and they weren't able to defeat them. And then as the enzyme was starting to work, they showed them, getting stronger and stronger.
I also like the way that you see how it kind of plays on they're already naturally pretty aggressive type A people, whereas Rodney is much more, he's high strung, but in a more anxious way. And so you kind of get that side of him amplified, but with Taylor and Ronan, they're just much more aggressive.
Yeah, even to each other, where they're fighting over the food at one point, and you're wondering what's going to happen next because they're like lunging at each other over the table until Shepard is able to intervene by getting punched, but accidentally. And we get some cool scenes between Ronan and Ford too, because the last time they met was in Runner, the only time they met, and they met briefly in the woods, and Ronan finally gets his. Ford saved him, yeah, which Ford reminds Ronan of in this episode.
I like how we get to see like a different side of post-enzyme Ford here. Like he's still kind of crazy, but you understand where he's coming from his point of view. And it's almost like, I feel like, because previously he was kind of just soldier guy who was kind of like third rung on the team.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he has like a chip on his shoulder about showing up Shepard, that he can be a leader and do all that, because he never really had that before. So this is like giving him a new purpose.
He wants to make them proud. He wants to fix it, solve it, use his strength, for good, which is really interesting in the way you see Shepard trying to deal with him, trying to, pacify him. Yes, we understand. No, that's great. And, he comes up with a whole mission plan for them, which is why he kidnapped them.
Yeah, but Ford keeps changing the plan like every time, every conversation. There's like another part of the plan that he didn't reveal before, and you can tell he's kind of like, he's maybe in a better place, but he's still kind of up on the enzyme, and he's still not quite in full, doesn't have quite full control of himself, because he gets hyper focused on the goal of blowing up the Hive ship, because they find out that it is on the way to cull a couple worlds. Its path is, and they figure out where it's going to stop based on combining the Wraith and Genai tech, and but his plane keeps getting these like, well, McKay's staying here. Well, actually, you can't see out of the dart. Well, actually, you can't do this or that. So they keep just it's like Darth Vader, keeps altering the deal, and you hope he doesn't alter it any further.
Yeah, and a lot of that is to keep Shepard on his toes too, because Ford intentionally gives him kind of a sob story about how he wants to go home. And Ford's like, well, then let's go home. And he's like, no, I don't really want to go back to Atlantis. I was just making sure that you wanted to take me back there. Initially, Shepard gets him to agree to take Rodney with him, because Shepard's plan is to scoop them all up in the dart and then somehow make it back to Atlantis. But then Ford changes the plan and says, oh yeah, Rodney's staying here, which turned out to be, fortuitous. But
the dart could only go there and here, and that's it.
Yeah.
So he thought through it all. So Ford's crazy, but not really.
He's very shrewd.
Yeah.
His plane has no room for errors, like the whole autopilot thing, and then he's blaming Shepard for, you beamed half my guys off, you did this, it's your fault.
That was a very tragic, like, funny moment too. We get to see that in the first episode when they finally do make it to the dart, and the plan's going wrong already, because the dart goes on autopilot in a docking procedure, and Shepard can't see out, so he has to rematerialize the people. And of course, he rematerializes them, and half of Ford's team is rematerialized kind of on the edge of the platform and falls into the abyss.
Yeah,
including poor Jace, which he would probably be the person I would leave behind with the tech. Right? What's he going to do? But
I thought you just thought because he was annoying.
I like Jace. He was he was smart.
But it was for plot. They had, every time something happened, a few more of Ford's guys didn't make it. So that was, I liked that scene where they rematerialize and they're on the bridge, and then it just keeps reinforcing that there's real stakes. I mean, not for the Atlantis team, but
Ford blames Shepard and is like, you killed half my men. He's angry, but he's not angry enough to just kill Shepard. He wants the mission to succeed. Because the plan is to take a briefcase of C4 that the Genai were somehow holding in this like off-world base in a cave or something rather than on the Janai homeworld. I didn't get that, but
It was like a safe house, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
but-
like a weapons depot kind of.
but
Yeah.
how much
Yeah, it was-
C4 did they
'cause-
take from Atlantis? I mean, how much C4 did did the Atlantis expedition bring with them? If
as
there's
much as they can
like-
get.
It's a Stargate. They have unlimited C4.
That's true. But it just seemed funny to me that they were holding it like in a cave guarded by like 3 guys versus like on their homeworld. But
Hmm.
I was say it's just. I mean, it's kind of like they're still trying to hide who they are, maybe. So they're like they want to keep these advanced. They're getting too much stuff on their homeworld, so they need to keep it where they can get to it, but not where And they know Atlantis knows where the Janai homeworld is now too. So maybe they're afraid their C4 is going to get taken back.
And when we find out that I forgot his name is a former Janai spy, it makes you think about how big their spy ring is and how much the Janai are meddling in the other planets and what's going on. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was. They do a good job weaving a lot of threads into the rich tapestry that is this 2-parter.
Yeah, there's a lot of callbacks to previous episodes, previous plot threads, and even in the first episode, like the previously on has like clips from like 4 different episodes to get you caught up.
The one thing they could have done previously on, you realize that these 2 episodes really, I don't want to say rehash or are influenced by 2 Stargate episodes, SG-1 episodes. So in the The Lost Boys, you see a lot of things that remind you of upgrades.
Yep.
When the SG team had the armbands that made them all powerful, and then they kind of lost control of they became aggressive and couldn't think straight and all that kind of stuff. So I felt like there was a lot of influence from that episode into this episode. Well done. I mean, I'm not criticizing. It was very well done. And then in the second episode, when we get there, again, that Serpent's Lair, which was season 2, episode 1, you have kind of the same thing where we find out that the Gould are more territorial, and how can we get them to fight amongst themselves in order to help us in the fight against them.
I was gonna say, I didn't even really think of those 2 episodes, but it is a similar setup.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of upgrades because of Rodney's, like he had his nerd revenge moment, getting to inject himself with the enzyme and beat up the 2 guys that he's probably never won a fight like that, or really a fight of any kind before. So he got his little Daniel moment of beating up the guys in the bar. So
yeah, and that fight actually went on longer. They filmed a lot more of it, but they had to cut it because the episode was running like 10 minutes long. But Rodney has to inject himself with a mega dose of the enzyme and basically takes probably like 8 or 9 times the normal dose. But it's cool because even though he's super strong, he doesn't really know how to fight. So he's still doing a lot of his just like clawing at their face and flailing his legs and stuff, but manages to knock them out. Never. And now you see what happens when you back a scientist into a corner or whatever he says. There. Meanwhile, back on Atlantis, there's a lot of Major Lorne searching. Even brings Zelenka into the field to try, and we've seen this before too, try to get the last address dialed off the DHD on the planet they were taken from. But as we've seen in the past, this is not an exact science, and so there's 50 gates they have to search. And as soon as the team comes back in, Dr. Weir sends them back out to search another planet. The Daedalus, burns the engines to get back to Atlantis as quickly as they can so they can join the search as well. And so I thought Colonel Caldwell had some really good scenes in this 2-parter as well. He's not just being dumped on by Weir in the show. He gets to be heroic and save the day.
Yeah, he gets to use the ship how he wants to use it to go save the team.
Yep.
Yeah, Weir's not being unreasonably hostile to him this time.
Well, she needs him to save her precious Shepard, so.
That's right.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I did feel like at the end, I know this is jumping to the end, but it almost feels like they were like setting up a thing between Shepard and Weir.
It's been
teasing
on
it, or-
teasing
again, off
that
again.
for a while.
Yeah.
We said that a lot season 1. And
Yep.
then we wondered if they were teasing Shepard and Taylor. And maybe they were. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they were, and the audience didn't respond. And so they were like, okay.
Well, I'm still going to ship
Yeah.
Lorne and Weir.
Who?
Lorne and Weir.
Oh,
Major
Lorne
Lorne.
and Weir? Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, if Weir can't
Okay.
get Shepard, then she'll go for the next guy in
She'll go for Lorne.
uniform.
Well, you could argue that Weir and Caldwell, like all of this antagonistic friction, like maybe that was their way of trying to
Yeah.
see if they have chemistry. They didn't.
Yeah,
No.
I don't know if they were trying to set up a Shepard and Taylor thing. There were maybe hints that they were doing that, but I think they didn't want to do the same, repeat Sam and Jack from
Mm.
SG1, so they didn't want to set up the two, the first in command, second in command as, well, kind of second in command as having that kind of thing. So I think maybe they were thinking about it, but I think they realized they work better just as good friends, maybe. And yeah, Shepard will have a few, various girlfriends throughout the show. I think the next one might be one where he has a girlfriend, if I'm remembering correctly. And Taylor has her own things going on. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm glad they didn't quite try to recreate the Sam Jack thing here.
Yeah.
I just quickly Googled Shepard Weir ship, and
Oh,
I wish I hadn't. There's tons of fan fiction out there. So
Any pictures?
now we know.
I don't know. I didn't click on the photos tab, and I'm not going to.
You got to be careful with those.
Okay.
Safe search is on.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then in episode 2, the Hive, we also get kind of, train spotting in a sense where Rodney hopped up on the Wraith enzyme has found a way to put the crystals back in the DHD that Ford had removed and gate back to Atlantis. And I guess they're IDCs. They don't say this, but are they like implanted in their skin now? Because they're like, all of their gear has been taken. And if an IDC was
Yeah.
something you would wear, they wouldn't have it anymore. But maybe it's, under their skin now or
It was
something.
Injected with the ancient
Oh yeah,
gene
nanoprobes
therapy
or something.
There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
There you go.
It's like the RFID tag in a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe they have it in like it's buried in their vest or something, where because
Yeah.
they still have like their vests and stuff, so maybe the Wraith don't quite. They're looking for weapons. They're not looking for like random pieces of
Garage door openers.
garage door openers.
They have like a tooth removed and an IDC put
got-
in. That's how I do it.
You got to bite in a certain sequence.
Yeah. Program it with your tongue. But yeah, and so this is Dr. Beckett's time to shine because
hmm
Rodney is talking a mile a minute but isn't really saying anything and collapses, and so then Dr. Beckett has to nurse him back to health while suffering Rodney's abuse and which they still managed to work some comedy into that too. And Rodney says like,
Mhm.
"You're just jealous of me because I'm so good with women," and like you see the two women personnel in the medical bay just kind of like look over and be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor Beckett. He's just
Yeah.
poor long-suffering Beckett, just getting dumped on.
You could tell how much they really are friends, I think, in that and the way that Beckett tends to him. I mean, yes, he's
Mhm.
doctor too, but
Yeah.
the way that he tends to puts up with all of Rodney, and then he still has some sort of sympathy or empathy for what he's going through. And you kind of wonder, like, did he have someone in his family maybe with an addiction or drugs or something? He seems very knowledgeable and very much understanding that this
Mhm.
is the drugs talking,
Yeah.
not Rodney.
And even health wise, it's very touch or go for Rodney. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, Ford's men, who've been taking the enzyme a lot longer on the Wraith ship, aren't doing so well as they, kind of the ones that are left die, one by one from withdrawal, including Kaneo.
hmm
Then you wonder, well, Taylor and Ronan, are they going to die too? They go through some pretty mean DTs, and they pull through, but they're definitely weakened, which affects their ability to escape.
There are no babies crawling on the ceiling, though. Fortunately,
No. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny how like Ford has like that doing the right thing, kind of redeeming himself, making sure the rest of them can get out. But you just feel really bad for him. Like he has all these plans and nothing's really working out.
No, it was an ambitious plan.
Yeah.
I think we can say that.
But I thought it was interesting that when Rodney comes to himself, comes back to himself, and he tells, I think it was Weir, that he sort of understands Ford now. He gets it because the way his brain is jumbled, that he gets that he's trying to help him, what he's trying to do, but he can't quite think clearly, and that he thinks everyone else is out to get him. So I liked that they gave us that moment of, it was kind of like a redemption of Ford in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we get a cool space battle too. When they find out where the Wraith ships are heading, Caldwell takes the Daedalus there with a puddle jumper. Lorne and McKay try to fly around the planet. At least they hide behind the planet this time, so the Wraith ships can't see them. They take the cloaked puddle jumper out to see if they can raise Shepard's team on the radio, but they can't. So the Daedalus has, which I think is quite heroically, they have no choice but to engage 2 Hive ships at this point to try and stop them from culling the planet, where they could have just turned around and ran away. And of course, the plan to beam the nuke over, which they did in the siege, doesn't work because they're jamming the signal, so they engage them with their railguns and other things too. And fortunately, Shepard is quick thinking has kind of goosed the situation too, because when he finds out that Nira is a Wraith worshiper, he says, "Oh, I'm like that too. Only it's more of a business proposition where I, sell information to competing Hive ships," and that kind of plants a seed of doubt in the Queen on the ship they're trying to escape from. Yeah, and so that when he does escape with Ronan and Tayla in the Dart, which I thought it was cool. Before he had to fly it using the little, Windows tablet heads-up display, but now he kind of understands how to fly it, just using the Wraith instrumentation, which I thought that was a really cool effect too. How they projected Wraith instruments on the entire canopy too, which was very alien and very cool.
Yeah, I like that effect.
Yeah, I liked how they were, McKay says, "Well, how's your Wraith?" And he's like, a bit fuzzy. He's like, it'll be close enough. And he's like, huh?
Yeah.
Because, this is trying to translate in real time. And then I liked how he calls it, Shepard calls it, R2 is because I'm a big Star Wars guy. So I like, the occasional Star Wars reference in my Stargate. So
it's worth a shot.
Right.
Yeah, and so we get some really impressive effects too of like hundreds of darts spilling out of the Hive ships as they're going to do this joint culling of the planet, and that effect is just incredible. You really get a feel for the scope of these cullings and just how awful they are, and Shepard seizes that moment to fire on the other Hive ship, which starts basically a civil war as the 2 Hive ships start firing at each other and blasting each other and destroy each other. And all the darts, including presumably Shepard's. But it's okay. He manages to fly away and then gate back to a planet, rematerialize Ronan and Tayla, and they all go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I like the strategy of turning the Wraith against themselves, and that they're highlighting that they cannot continue to use the exact same tactics every single time. Like, because they've come up with these different ways that are seemingly very effective in dealing with the Wraith, but the Wraith know how to adapt. And I feel like that's kind of another way that they're different from the Goa'uld, because the Goa'uld are very, very like single-minded when it came to how they dealt with things. And you could kind of use the same tricks over and over again with the Goa'uld because they were so egocentric. They didn't really think about that, but the Wraith are much more cunning and conniving.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, we'll see that again in a pretty interesting way. I can't remember exactly when, but it's a season or 2 down the road. But we'll get into more Wraith politics and race stuff, and it's a lot of fun when they do that. So I'm excited to get to that point.
I like, Victor, that you pointed out that they could have turned and they didn't know they were there for the longest.
Yeah.
So they could have just, I think leading up to the siege, the end of season 1, they watched a few cullings, didn't they?
Yeah, where they couldn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So they could have watched it and said, like, this is really terrible, but, we can't let them know that we're still alive, from Atlantis. So we can't, we're not going to do anything. Let's just get our people and fly on home and whatever. But they didn't. And so I like that. We always talk about their moral choices. So I like that they tried to engage and stop them.
Mm-hmm. They've gotten to the point they can't just stand aside.
Yeah. But as cool and as big a ship as the Daedalus is, you really get a sense of scale for how big the Hive ships are too, because it looks completely tiny coming up on the 2 Hive ships.
Yeah, what is the scale of those ships? I don't know if we have gotten a number yet.
The Hive ships
yeah.
I think in one of the episodes they said they were like 3 kilometers long or something when it was buried in the mountain or something, or at least 1 kilometer long, I believe. I need to watch one of those YouTube starship size comparison videos where they like kind of scale. They have like very basic CG models of all the ships, and then they scale out. They start with like person 6 feet tall, van.
I love those videos.
Yeah, and then they pan out, and then the biggest ships are always ones from like Halo or something where you're like, well, that's just cheating, making your ship, the size of a planet or something. Because
it is basically a planet. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they're cool videos. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I found a picture that compares the Wraith ship to the Enterprise D from Star Trek, which is kind of like my like standard by which I judge big starships, and it's like 5 times bigger, so it's very big.
Yep.
Awesome. Did we have any fun alternate language titles for this episode?
We did for part 1. In French we get L'Union fait la force, which is United We Stand. In Japanese we get Maiso no Hate, which is the end of the wandering, which I thought was nice. And then for part 2, which was the Hive, in German we get Bienenstock, which is beehive. And in Japanese we get Jool no Su, which is the queen's nest, or the queen's hive, I guess. So yeah, some interesting titles there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Did y'all have any other thoughts on this pair of episodes here?
No, just like go watch it. It's an action-packed episode. If you haven't seen it in a few years, go back and watch it, because and just marvel at the CG that they have in this, because it's really outstanding.
Yeah, it's excellent, especially I was going to say for the time, but it's just good CG regardless.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. We do have some feedback on our episode 203 on Aurora. Mark Gillies 1970 on YouTube says, I remember this episode being much better than you thought it was. However, my motto is boring beats bad, so that might explain it. And I'm gonna have to disagree there. I will take bad over boring any day.
Me too.
Bad can be fun, but that was it wasn't. I mean, I thought it was an okay episode, but yeah, just not a lot happens. So.
Yeah, and I listened to it today, and
do you have some feedback for us?
I really wasn't feeling good that day. I wasn't just skipping, and I listened to it, and I was like, oh, I can tell this is one they didn't really like it, and they're just trying to stretch it out to get to the end.
So we never do that.
Yeah.
So y'all did a good job with that.
Filler. Yeah.
So I didn't really have anything to add. My only thing was to give Victor some kudos on noticing that Pascal Hutton had been on When Calls the Heart with Kevin Smith. That is Kevin Smith. Yeah, Major Lorne. And on the show, they are a married couple. So.
Oh, wow.
So and they have been for many, many seasons. So I thought that was kind of a cool Stargate tie-in.
Interesting. It's funny how many Stargate actors end up in the Hallmark movie universe.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we need an official Stargate Hallmark crossover.
I think it's because a lot of it's made in Vancouver. So it's just all the Vancouver. But I forgot what I was watching that Amanda Tapping was a director on the other day. But
She was, yeah,
to go find
Sanctuary. She directed episodes of Supernatural as well.
no, it's something brand. I would say brand new.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. Look that up.
Awesome. Before we go, we would like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible to create The Secret to Stargate, including Bruce E., Loretta F., Richard G., Drew S., and Mary S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secret to Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can find our video versions at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. And to find previous episodes of Secret to Stargate and to send feedback, you can visit sqpn.com/Stargate. You can email us at stargate@sqpn.com and follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on X at SQPN. And be sure to check out the SQPN Discord at sqpn.com/Discord. And we'll be back next time with the next episode of SG1, Collateral Damage. Until then, Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining us and sharing The Secret to Stargate.
Thanks, Jack.
And Lisa Jones, thank you as well.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you too.
Thanks, Jack. And the clowns? Oh, yeah, the clowns. We fight them too, entire armies spilling out of Volkswagens. We do our best to fight them off, but they keep sending them in.
Enough with the clown.
Don't bother, they're here.
Exactly. And once again, I'm Jack Baruzzini. Thank you for listening to The Secret to Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?